Okay.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to 638 Podcast, Episode 9. Today I'm joined by Jared and Bailey. Jared, this is your first time on the podcast. How does it feel?
It is indeed. I feel honored. I'm not gonna lie. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Well, you should. That's an appropriate feeling to have right now. um, anyways, moving right along. Today, if you're tuned in, we have a pretty interesting or controversial topics we're going to be talking about, which are conspiracy theories. Now, I just want to preface this video by saying a lot of these theories that we're talking about are conjecture. They're not necessarily fact. And, everybody do their own research and do whatever. And this doesn't, even though we bring up a theory, that doesn't necessarily mean we believe the theory, but we kind of all scoured the internet and looked for some theories we either thought were interesting or thought were just so outlandish that we had to bring them up in this podcast. So, without further ado, I want to talk to you guys about one of the most interesting theories I came across on the internet. So
All right.
I have to first start by asking you guys a question. Have either of
Go
you
for
been
it.
to Finland?
I have not.
I'm not either.
Interesting.
Sounds like a very interesting place there.
Well, to me, it doesn't really sound like an interesting place because one of the theories I came across is that Finland actually doesn't exist.
I forgot.
And you both just proved
Wow.
it because you both haven't been there. And I, as a matter of fact, have not been there as well.
But all right. Think about it this way though. When Patrick Starr gets knocked out, he yells Finland. And it's
Okay.
an animated fake show. So maybe it might be a fake country.
That's what I'm saying. So basically, what happened? I stumbled upon this. There's this article on the Week/UK. I've never heard of it, so it has to be great. Um, it basically it says that in theory, the nation of Finland is actually part of the Baltic Sea, and people who claim to live there are really from eastern Sweden, western Russia, or northern Estonia. And this theory was born on Reddit in the year 2016, but actually caught a lot of steam, caught a lot of traction apparently.
Okay.
And the reason why Finland is not real, but people think Finland is real, is because
Right.
Russia and Japan supposedly made up this fictional country in 1918. The reason they did this was so that the two nations could created Finland so that Japan could fish the sea that truly exists there without any environmental complaints or repercussions. I mean, just from reading this, I was like, okay, this is kind of crazy. But then I'm like, hey, you know, Japan likes to fish, so it started making a lot more sense to me. I want to hear your take on this, Bailey.
I mean, so it's the fact that okay, people still live in the area that is considered Finland, but it isn't an actual official geographic area. Is that what the argument is?
Yes, is that it's a fake country made up of Eastern Sweden, Western Russia, or Northern Estonia.
I mean, okay.
Wait. Let me
I
ask you
think
this. Let me ask you this, Bailey. Hold up. Have you been to Finland?
see that's fair. You can say
Have you
that
been to
if
Have you been to Finland?
I have not. You
Okay,
could
Jared. I
say
want to hear your
in-
take on this.
I mean, honestly, it's pretty convincing. Like the fact that you could just sign up people from different regions and say that they're from Finland. If you just throw a little money at them or something like that, like, why would they object?
Yeah, I mean there could be some serious money involved. All right, go ahead, Bailey. Go ahead. I'll hear your
yes.
3 cents.
I was surprised about that throwaway there, but I'll ignore it. Yes, in I can understand the idea of there being kind of ambiguity in terms of what a town or country is a part of, in terms of annexation and cultural identity and stuff like that. That's not super uncommon. But I mean, this idea is interesting. I could, God, it's okay. It's odd because I mean, clearly, that area exists, but I guess the idea of Finland being its own country, uh, I guess maybe couldn't exist. I can believe that being a thing because who would know unless they lived in Finland or grow up in Finland and have like prior access to that kind of knowledge. So I mean, I could see that maybe being a thing. Like, I don't think it's super far fetched
Yeah, and
since
also
I have no information about it.
I also want to say that this is a very important note. Every single representative I've seen from quote unquote Finland, from in the UK, in the UN or everything, has looked a lot more Eastern Swedish to me than actually Finnish. You know, like is Finnish even like is that even a word? Like I don't even think they took the time to really flesh that out. You know. Anyways,
Yeah.
anything else to add on this? On
That
anybody?
was honestly like, yeah, you said like Finland isn't real, and it kind of hit me out of left field. I was just thinking like it was like a very like just like inconspicuous conspiracy, but then you pulled out the receipts there, so I'm pretty impressed, and I think
Yeah.
that there is a chance.
That's yeah. This kind of
I
this
feel
one
somewhat
crept up on me.
enlightened.
Yeah, this one definitely crept up on me, and so if you guys learned anything from this podcast today, because this is very educational, Finland may not in fact be real. Now
That
I want
is
to throw it over
that's
to
fair.
Bailey now, and Bailey's had some interesting theories he wanted to talk about. Go for it, Bailey. What are you going to enlighten us with today? What sort of information?
I have a lot. I know we discussed before, interesting ones that kind of might have crossed paths when we were doing some research. One I really like, and that I first saw in Westworld, which maybe Jared has seen because I know he's watched it,
One
is
of
when
the
they
best shows on TV.
exactly when they discuss Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam painting and how they talk about. I mean, this has been a widely kind of discussed thing that was discovered in like the '90s. Was that like, it's the meeting between Adam and God, where like God gives life to man, and like the kind of like apparatus around God is like a brain,
Right.
which is supposed to kind of symbolize maybe like, hey, like God's like an extension of like our own brains, or like He gave us intelligence, or like we're an extension of God's, with our intelligence, something like that. So I was curious, like maybe because this is in the Sistine Chapel, if this was maybe like a gripe by Michelangelo, maybe at the church, because he was like dissatisfied with like how they were kind of, running most of Europe at that time, or him kind of giving them some kind of like, what for maybe not having uh, full agreement with how they run things. So that's kind
Okay.
of one thing I'm very interested in.
Okay. So that sounded very very smart, but to the people like me that didn't get all of that, could you explain that conspiracy theory one more time in like a 1 to 2 sentence, small
Yeah,
words?
pretty much painting of God and Adam.
Okay.
Thing around God might be brain.
So
What does that mean?
so did people at that time know about brains and stuff? Is that what you're saying, or
That's the one thing. Like people are like, there's like, apparently like Michelangelo used to like, I guess like dig up like bodies and like work for some kind of like doctor or some kind of equivalent like that. And he was an expert in like anatomy, and I guess this was his way of expressing, I guess, like his understanding of anatomy and how it relates to like perception of like religion during that time, since it was such a big deal.
hmm? Yeah, that sounds very very that sounds good to me. I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
it just sounds good. Jared, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, it comes at a time like especially when people were starting to discover more about individuality and really like thinking
yep,
for yourself. So
exactly.
I think that that is something that's definitely possible.
Right. I mean, yeah, it being during the Renaissance, like especially when there was more enlightened thinking and like exploration of like individuality, like Jared said, just more free thought. And again, like the thing is, even though that was happening, like these kind of like themes in art still were very dominant. So like usually you had to do these kinds of things, like like there's some kind of church or like some kind of big donor or patron would kind of commission you to do these kinds of things, and like typically you would spend most of your time doing religious work. So I guess to some degree, this could have been him kind of lashing out, or just maybe not lashing out, but kind of given a more, out of the box interpretation or
It's
opinion
almost
about
like
how he thought things.
it's like a backhanded expression, basically.
Exactly. So it's very subtle, and I think it's interesting in that regard.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think definitely, even from the ancient Egyptians, just give a quick history lesson, they were messing with dissection of the human body and stuff. I know they take out organs and whatnot when people died. So I think it's very interesting. I think the interesting part is you saying making that connection between the brain and like God or whatnot. But I think that's definitely interesting, and that would be an interesting connection to be made um, many years ago.
Yeah, I think so too.
Moving on a little bit, I want to throw it over to Jared now about his. He also researched some conspiracy theories. We're kind of going to flow in this podcast. We're each going to go around and say a conspiracy theory one at a time until we kind of run out. So Jared, what's the first conspiracy theory that you want to tell us about?
All right, so this is one that you probably haven't thought of before. And honestly, I don't have too much evidence to back it up or not. This is just a hunch that I've had for a while.
Oh, I'm ready.
Wonder is not.
Oh my god.
Wait,
He can actually see.
say that one more time.
Stevie Wonder has vision. He's not blind.
Okay.
Blind singer, songwriter, and piano player,
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder.
So what have you
'Cause
noticed to lead you to this conclusion?
Just by the way he kind of carries himself, almost like he always wears completely tinted out sunglasses. Like you've never ever seen him without sunglasses on. I mean, if either of you have, then you can tell me. But I know in my life, I've never seen him without sunglasses on. And then you see him like at award shows, and then he just kind of like ends up on the stage, just in the perfect, like exact perfect place.
That's
He'll
true.
walk right up there too. It's just I don't know. Some of it seems a little questionable. Like you just you see him walk around, and you see him playing the piano. Like I don't know. He might be looking at it. That's all I'm saying.
I never really thought about that, but right, if you're blind, it should take you quite a bit longer to get up on the stage, right? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I never notice that it takes him longer to get on that stage. It's a very very good point
Yep.
you made there. Also,
That's what I'm saying.
so I don't know if you guys know this, but like I watch a lot of award shows because my mom likes award shows. Stevie
Right,
Wonder
of course.
has this signature thing. Every time he wins an award, he takes his glasses off and like stares at the trophy, like pretending to stare at it. But I don't think he's actually pretending. Now that I really think about it, because every time he pretends to look at the trophy, his eyes are like directly on it. Like he never misses. Like he's never like the trophy's like in his right hand and he's like looking off to the left. He's always like dead like right on it. So
Exactly.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
he's probably staring at that trophy and then looking around at the crowd and being like, "These idiots know nothing."
Yeah. I wonder what you could get away with if like if you were theoretically pretending to be blind. It's
Oh,
probably-
I'd like to know.
What do you think about this, Bailey?
Yeah, I mean, I can believe to a degree that, I mean, he maybe is mostly blind, but he's able to see to a very limited extent, um, and can kind of make out certain images, maybe like, silhouettes of people, and he can kind of like still, mostly kind of get an idea of like what he's seeing, but it's just not, like what you and I see.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that. No pun
So
intended.
didn't see that one coming.
All right. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. Something to think about. Something to think about for sure. So, moving on to my next one. This is probably my most convincing one, where I have the most facts on. And my next conspiracy theory, which I wanna pull up the article so I get all the facts while I'm doing this. But my next conspiracy theory is that Paul McCartney is actually dead and died in 1966. Have you guys
That
heard
could
of this
work,
one
right?
before?
I actually
Yeah, I've heard this
haven't.
one before.
Okay.
I have not.
So here comes. This is again from the same article from the UK, theweek.com/UK. Okay, so so at first I'm like, what? I'm like, no way. Like I've seen Paul McCartney. Like he's been everywhere my entire life. Like I know who Paul McCartney is, and he's alive, and he's just an old man, an old British man. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of facts that actually back this up. One of them is in their song, or in their album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. They claim it washed with Paul is dead. Clues such as the lyrics into a day. Okay, wait. Let me go. Okay. So there's a bunch of different song references that basically signify or like hint at Paul McCartney being dead. Which
Interesting.
so a couple of them like if you play the song or in the lyrics of the song "A Day in the Life," which features the line "He blew his mind out in a car," and the recorded phrase "Paul is dead, miss him," which becomes evident only when the song is played backwards.
Oof, it's one of
Le-
those things.
Lennon also mumbled, "I buried Paul" at the end of "Strawberry Fields Forever." Although,
God,
just for the record, he
freaked
did
out
say he
right now.
denied this. But even though it does sound like "I buried Paul," he said cranberry sauce, quote unquote.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I would have to listen to the song more in depth
Yeah,
to
and yeah, there's been a
really
lot
see
of things
that.
like that when you play songs backwards, and you wonder. I mean, yeah, are they definitely intended like that? I mean, who knows?
and
Wow.
there's even more evidence. Like there's so many different things. Just another one I wanted to point out is on their Sergeant Pepper album again. The words "Lonely Hearts" on the drum logo could be read as "One X He Die One."
Jeez, I think I'm sold right now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like again, I wasn't born in 1966. Like the how it goes is that the Paul McCartney, like they just found someone that looked like Paul McCartney and sang like Paul McCartney to replace him, and didn't tell anybody and just said he was Paul McCartney. So again, I wasn't
Wow.
alive in 1966. Like, how am I supposed? A lot of people, like that were avid Beatle fans in 1966. They're slowly, they're slowly kicking the can, low key. So I mean, this guy that I think's Paul McCartney, like he could be just some other dude that just changed his name, and he may not be the original, and I would never know.
That's true. You would never know.
Maul McCartney.
Something something you can't prove is true or not true, honestly, unless you're him.
Yeah,
That, that's
definitely.
pretty plausible. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely something. This was the one where I definitely read it. And I'm like, wow. Like there's a lot of different strange coincidences that go along with this.
Hey, I
But
mean, people are people. Am I right?
yeah, but anyways, I guess that's enough on that one. Just something to think about. Moving right along, Bailey, I was wondering if you had another one that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, sure. I think one that we were kind of alluding to before we started the talk was something regarding Michael Jordan. And if you guys, I know The Last Dance just came out
I need to
in this
watch that.
last
I haven't
month.
watched it yet, but I definitely need to watch
Ooh,
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good.
I mean, I mean, I guess this is not totally spoiler free, but they do discuss two things which are very interesting. One, I guess, maybe is the most interesting is when they talk about in 1997 when the Bulls are playing Utah in the NBA final, and there's this whole anecdote about it being like before a game, and Michael's like up and he's hungry, needs to eat something. It's like 3 a.m. or whatever. It's late at night, and they call in a pizza, and when they deliver the pizza, five guys show up, and they seem very out about it, and which seems weird because why do five guys need to deliver one pizza? That seems odd in itself already. And then after that, like his trainer gets calls and Michael's like throwing up and like super sick and pulled up in a ball or whatever like that. And then, they assume he was poisoned. And then yet he still plays the game. I mean, obviously, rest is history, but there's this whole accusation that he didn't have the flu because that was the kind of common was attributed to that game. But actually, it was some kind of food poisoning. So my thing is like, why would you still eat the pizza then if five guys delivered it and you thought it was suspicious? You could say, hey, he was super hungry and like he just wanted to eat, and I get that, but I don't know. That's something I'm still kind of thinking about.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Like I haven't seen the documentary, but I know in life, like there are things that like I wouldn't notice unless something goes wrong, and then I'm like, you know what, like that was actually suspicious. But if it's like you would just go along with it unless something happens, and then you'd start retracing your steps and be like, it actually was suspicious that five guys were bringing the pizza to me.
Right.
But I think that's definitely interesting. You know, that could definitely be plausible. Honestly, I think like the symptoms of like if you had food poisoning, I could see you being able to play better than if you actually had the flu. Because like with food
Right.
poisoning, like sure you're throwing up and stuff, and like you clearly don't feel well, but it eventually like it can clear up faster, and then like your stomach only really feels bad. Like you're physically okay, except for obviously your
Right.
stomach. Where with the flu, like
One
you're
more point I probably.
go
Oh,
for
yeah,
it.
go on. Sorry.
No, go for it. Go for it.
The one point I probably should make is a recurring theme in the documentary is that sometimes he would use these kind of like, maybe petty or sometimes even false motivations to kind of like, psych himself up and then perform well. And this could have been one of those things.
Right.
Is what's going around.
Right.
I agree with
What do
that.
you think about this, Jared? Like overall?
Yeah, I think just in general, hindsight's always 2020,
Mm.
Exactly.
and like he can say, "Oh yeah, I was suspicious when I saw the pizza," but like, have you ever looked at a pizza after someone delivered it to you and said, "This pizza looks kind of sus. I think I'm
Right?
gonna get food poisoning." And the other thing is, like, he said that 5 people delivered the pizza in his room, and they were all like peeping in because they knew it was Michael Jordan.
Yes.
But how would
It's an important point.
if his manager called up the pizza place, like, do you think he really said like one pizza for Michael
For
Jordan,
Michael Jordan.
please?
Right. That's what I'm always curious about.
Like,
I
if
think
his
they would keep it
man
low key.
exactly, if his manager, because there's no way he used Michael Jordan's credit card. So if his
Right.
manager bought the pizza and paid for it and everything, like how would they have known? It there's a missing link there that really definitely brings up a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
Unless.
that was from watching it also, from The
Yeah.
Last Dance.
I.
That was because I didn't really know anything about it before,
Yeah, me
but
neither.
just seeing that definitely left me with many more questions than answers.
Yeah, I definitely need to watch the series. I know I've been kind of late on that because I haven't like even though this quarantine's been going on, I haven't been good at watching cable TV just in general. When something's on, so definitely definitely something I need to catch up on and watch. Shout out to ESPN. Shout out to sports documentaries. Pretty good.
Oh
And
yeah.
Michael,
And shout out to Michael Jordan. Why
first and
not?
foremost.
Shout out to my mom too. Hi mom. Anyways, Jared,
And
what's your
Dad.
next conspiracy theory you want to talk about?
Um. So my next conspiracy theory. This has been a long debated one that many people have talked about over many different podcasts, probably, and in many books. But it's that Stanley Kubrick directed the moon landing, and it was
Mm.
done in Los Angeles, not on the moon.
Okay.
I've heard this one.
So I'm not denying that the moon landing didn't happen. I think it did happen. But I do think that there's a chance that they were not able to record the moon landing and instead played a pre-documented version of it.
That
And
is pretty interesting, actually. Yeah.
so before Stanley Kubrick died, he actually supposedly admitted to filming the moon landing. I mean, I can't confirm or deny it because I wasn't there, but sources do say that. And there's just I found a couple websites just from looking it up that have just a couple questions that it poses from watching the original moon landing. Like especially one of them comes from the when they plant the American flag on the moon. It's like the flag is basically standing up straight and waving, like it's like waving in the wind almost.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Or it's just completely standing up straight though, but the moon it's in a vacuum, so I don't think that would be happening. It would probably just be falling down or whatever as they took it out of the ship and put it in there. Like there was nothing that would be causing it to stand up like that, and it just seems a little sus. And the other thing that seemed also suspicious about it was there were shadows going in multiple different directions when they were walking around on the moon.
Right.
And I mean, if you're on the moon, like there's only one source of light,
Mm-hmm.
which is the sun. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It's definitely interesting to bring up. Another point that I wanted to add to that was, um, you know, looking at the quality of the video from the moon landing, like, and comparing that to like the quality of like streamed video now in space, like it's not as big of an improvement as I would have expected from like if they were able to get that sort of quality video that long ago, like live stream video now, if you guys have watched it, like I'm not saying people that recorded it and then sent it back, like live streamed video now from
Right.
space, which isn't even as far as the moon, but even just from the space station, the quality's still not that great, you know. And this is
Yeah,
50,
true.
50, 60 years, you know, in, in the future. Like you'd expect the video quality to have significantly gone up, and it'll be very interesting because I know there we're trying to go back to the moon or whatever. It'll be very interesting to see what that footage looks like, and then compare. I know a lot of people are going to compare it to the previous versions. But
I agree.
what I do want to ask Bailey and you, but I want Bailey to go first after he gives his take on this. Do you
Sure.
think that if we go back to the moon, and I also want to ask Jared this, if we go back to the moon, do you think that one would be real, like 100%?
Oof. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna deny that the landing did happen, but I could see that, in footage you do see. This is just speculating. I mean, it is very cinematic, so I can see that maybe, sure, like, it looks almost too good to be true. The quality is maybe too good to be true, especially in that time when like video technology itself is pretty new and kind of still evolving. And then, like you mentioned, quality today not even being that much improved. But then again, I don't know a lot about how maybe like the universe itself is always changing. If that could affect the video quality, I don't totally know. um, but yeah, I think there's a possibility that you know maybe to kind of spur the hopes of people and kind of like reassure people that progress is happening. There could be a chance that yeah, maybe that landing did happen, but to make it maybe seem, you know, uh, be grander, maybe they did film it. Most likely, I would say no, but I could see the argument for it given the quality and what actually takes place. But then again, I don't have a good background in astronomy, astrophysics, stuff like that to kind of be certain about certain things seen in the video. But I could see why people might be convinced that that is a possibility.
Yeah, of course. We're just giving our opinions on this podcast, you know. So they're obviously 100% true, and we're all experts. Um, Jared, I did want to ask you though, if we go back
Mm-hmm.
to the moon, do you think
Yeah.
that it's 100% real if we go back and there's footage?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely do. Because I do think that it has like it definitely did happen. It's just whether the footage that we got from it
Yes.
is
Right.
from the moon. That's
Right.
more of what I'm calling into
I
question.
see. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see a scenario where they did record something because again, I think we keep talking about like having the video, like being able to see video quality like that
Yeah,
streamed
from the moon.
from the moon in 19, what is it? I don't even know what year it was. I don't, whatever. I'm sorry everybody, history majors. um
I want to say 1969 or something.
in the late
Something like that.
1960s, it would have been insane, you know. Almost too good to be true. And you know, I know they wanted people to see it because they were going to put it prime time on TV. Like they had to have had a backup plan, right? Because everybody was watching it on TV. There had to be a backup
Mhm.
Very
plan,
fair.
you know.
Right.
I
Getting how
actually
much
have
air is possible.
I have one more just point of evidence. This is a little bit of a stretch, but the year before Stanley Kubrick's movie 2001: A Space Odyssey came out, where
That's also true.
he spent years directing a movie that was set in space with basically like very little CGI and had to rely on practical effects because it was that came out in 1968. So, I mean, he could have just had space on his mind, and then the U.S. government was like, "Hey, we need you to do something. You're the best space simulator director that there is." And who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. Um, I want to move on. I want to do kind of one more round of us going around in theories, and we can kind of wrap this up. So I did have another theory I wanted to talk to you guys about. This one's a little bit of a twist on a classic theory. Now you guys have obviously heard of flat earthers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
So obviously, you know, flat earthers, not much science backing them up or whatever. But have you guys ever heard of hollow earthers?
I have heard of that actually.
Oh,
I've
okay.
never heard of that. Please elaborate.
So hollow earthers, unlike those,
I'm
you
so
know,
curious.
flat earthers that don't believe in science, hollow earthers actually believe that the earth, like there's a civilization inside the earth. that like has different people that are more advanced than us. That there's a whole civilization
Hmm.
within Earth before you hit the core or whatever. So like I mean obviously there's been movies that are kind of like this, like Journey to the Center of the Earth and whatnot. But a lot of
Right.
people actually believe this is real and like that there's actually a society under us. Now, I can give you some backstory. This theory has actually been as old as the 17th century by this guy named Edmund Halley, who has a comet named after him. Look at that. Um,
Hey, look at that. Yeah.
and yeah, this is just this is kind of interesting because this same guy who had this theory also um, thought that there was a big fire in the center of the Earth. So he kind of thought that the Earth's core was already hot. So his theory is there's definitely like the correct temperature and there's a lot of space in between the core and the surface. So theoretically, I don't know how much in the retrospect of things how deep and how much humans have really dug within the Earth. Like how close have we really gotten to the core? I don't think we've gotten that
Hmm.
close. So
Right.
there's definitely a lot not explored on this, and I wanted to get Jared's take first about these hollow earthers and how they compare to flat earthers.
All right, so the one thing that just doesn't make sense to me about this is that like if there's just this hollow layer in the middle of the earth, like how is there a separate like mini sphere basically contained under that without gravity affecting it at all?
Good point.
Hmm.
Like it just that's one part of it that just doesn't really make sense to me. Like maybe if it was like a tunnel system or something like that, then like it would be somewhat explainable, I guess. But I don't know. This one is just a little bit of a long shot to me.
You're not allowed to bring science into these. Didn't I read you the rules? You're not allowed
Uh,
to bring science
Oh,
into
my,
these.
that
That's
is
not
true.
fair.
That is true.
All
my
right,
bad.
Bailey. I want to hear your take on this.
That's a fair point. I've been trying to be too reasonable in some of my arguments, but yeah, I mean, I guess like, I mean, yeah, my question would be, yeah, like, is it a different kind of people who have evolved to kind of live in this kind of setting where, like, yeah, you don't have to need, like, you don't require certain elements of like of like the world that we live in to survive, like the way that certain plants grow, or like how I guess light affects your skin and whatnot, or like yeah, how gravity affects like your ability to move and actually like build and create things. I I don't know. That's my thing. I'm not sure if you could really survive those conditions if like there is that space.
So I do want
That's
to clarify this German scholar that also believed in this theory in 1664. His name is, I can't pronounce this, but I'm going to try, Antoninus Kircher. He described
yes, I've
it
heard of
that their
him.
living conditions. He claimed the Earth contains a central fire and a vast underground lakes and lava chambers, and that people live there.
Yeah, I mean if that's the case, then yeah, I don't know enough about that to be certain, but I just don't know if that would be livable if they are. I get oh, I mean I guess if that's similar enough to a regular kind of natural setting, then yeah, maybe it could be true.
Now I want to ask you both before we get off this theory. Which one do you think is more believable, flat Earth or hollow Earth? I want to start with Jared. Which one do you think is more believable and why?
I would say probably the Hollow Earth one because there's more explanations to it that you could make up to that wouldn't revolve around the Earth being flat, and the Earth would still stay spherical, and that's usually constructive when you're talking about how the Earth is shaped.
That's definitely a good point. What about you? I can't even argue with that. What about you,
Yeah,
Bailey?
I'm I'm in the same boat as Jared. I mean, there's more evidence there can be conditions that are met that could satisfy like normal functioning of life with that hollow earth theory, and that there's certain things with like curvature and like perspective and how you look at now um, in terms of just disproving that flat earth is more plausible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm more with the hollow. I'm more with the hollow.
All right. Yep. That makes sense. I can't argue with that. Bailey, I want to go to you and then Jared to get some final takes if you have them on on your last theories or another theory you want to propose.
Sure. Yeah, I guess this one is probably mostly true, but I guess some people claim it's not true. Is tanking in sports.
Okay.
Now, I mean,
Wait,
this is very
I do
common,
want to say
especially.
something before you start. I noticed a trend between how we took this conspiracy theory episode. You took conspiracy theories that like I all believe, like I believe every single one that you have proposed. You know, I so the ones that I proposed, I don't even believe half of them, but I am trying my darndest. I just went like really out there, and then Jared's somewhere in the middle. But go ahead. I just think that's really funny that
I
we all
know,
like went three different spectrums.
I know. I got wrapped up in trying to be, uh, I guess, comprehensive, but that's me. Um, yeah, I mean, this one's interesting because I mean, it's very common now for teams to kind of position themselves well to get good draft picks or have good farm systems. And a big part is tanking, which is, losing on purpose and trying to not make it obvious to, you know, benefit their
Mm-hmm.
team in the long run. But I mean, there are teams that deny it. They're saying, oh, yeah, we're rebuilding, which doesn't mean trying to lose on purpose. But there are some cases like with the Orioles, with people playing the Dolphins in 2019. Um, Sorry, Jared. We're
Oof.
tanking, but I'm wondering how true you think that is. I mean, I think it's pretty true, but teams do deny it.
All right, what do you think, Jared?
I think that it's something that definitely happens, but you mentioned the Dolphins there, and I think that really, in the case of the Dolphins at least, like they were a team that was just completely devoid of talent, and they
Yes,
eventually did find a way to win, and they won 5 out of their last 9 games
right.
this season. And a team that's
That's my
tanking, like I just don't think that they would have done that at all. Maybe in the beginning of this season, they might have seen it as like, well, we're losing this season anyway. We don't need to try. But
right,
honestly, like once the team won their first game, it kind of just flipped a switch in everybody, and you could have definitely seen that like they weren't purposely losing. But I think when it comes to basketball, I think that that's definitely something that happens much more frequently, especially with like the Knicks and the Cavs and even the
yep,
Pelicans almost.
right.
Yeah.
I think you could see. I think one thing just to add quickly, like with the Knicks, especially in basketball. I mean, you could see like in the most recent draft, 2019, like when the Knicks didn't get the first pick, like they were like appalled, almost as if
Mm-hmm.
like their plan to tank didn't work, yet they still won't admit to tanking. So I mean, that's kind of seems to imply that or allude to that point that they actually were tanking.
Right. I definitely believe in tanking. I think it starts from the upper management of whatever team that they decide that they want to tank. But I will say I do think tanking's a little different than how a lot of people describe it. I think it starts with the upper management's like we want to lose as many games as possible for this season because they clearly see that they're not put in a good position or for whatever reason or they don't think they have a team to win. But they necessarily don't have a team to lose. So what they do is they'll put the team in a certain position, trade away the leaders in the locker room, trade away their best players, and just claim assets for the next like few years. Like just trade away all their best players. Like clearly put themselves in not a good position to win games because it's very hard to tell a player
Right,
who's trying to earn a living and make money and like their market value they know they're not going to be on this team forever. Like it's very hard to tell the player to hey don't try your hardest. What
right,
upper management can do though is they can put their players in a position to create an atmosphere where it's hard to be motivated and then also just create an atmosphere where obviously like you just look at the talent around you and say hey like we're not going to win you know sometimes it gets to
right,
the head coach. I'd say the head coach it's like 50-50 whether they're in on tanking or not because I think sometimes it gets to them and sometimes it doesn't because they also have their market value that they have to worry about. But upper management,
right,
they're going to get paid the same no matter what. And if they want to tank, they can just make decisions where they're not going to win as many games as that they're going to lose as many games as possible, essentially.
right. A good
Yeah, I
point
agree
about
with
that
that.
is I had one thing to add was about the like miscommunication between players and maybe management not knowing about the plan. Kind of relates to like the whole thing with the Astros cheating scandal in 2017 when like there were claims that like some management did know and like some players didn't know but some did. Like to me, I can understand how like especially if a group of players knows how they all can't know if like it's pretty obvious that something is going on, there's some kind of chatter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm confused about that. If in regards to tanking, if yeah, not everyone knows, or it would become apparent at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have one additional comment on that also. The other thing about tanking that I've noticed at least is that in basketball, it only takes one first round pick to transform your entire team.
Mm-hmm.
But in
That is true.
football, like as what Steve was saying, you want those assets because you can build your team with a lot of assets. So it's you can kind of more like inconspicuously tank in football, where it's way more in your face if you do it in basketball.
Hmm.
For sure, for sure. I want to end this with if Jared has another final topic that he wants to propose to us.
Yeah. So I do actually, and this one is one that I've discussed before actually with you guys, but
Go
it's
for
that
it.
the Denver airport was established and run by the Illuminati and the Satanists
So
and
I
Freemasons.
do want to ask you this first. There's a couple hot takes in there. One, are you do you is the Illuminati real in this in this
I mean,
world?
if the Denver airport's real, then so are they.
That's fair. All right, and what are your reasonings for the audience? What are your reasonings for why this is the Denver airport in particular are controlled by these certain groups?
All right. So have either of you ever been to this airport?
I have not.
I normally fly into
Okay.
Colorado Springs, so now
Okay, gotcha. That's understandable.
yes.
So at the front of the airport, you're greeted by about probably like I don't know, 30-foot tall statue of a horse. That's like it looks like a Broncos logo basically. But there's just one thing about it that throws me off a little bit is that it has literally glowing red eyes. They put red lights in the eyes. And if you look it up, you'll see it and it's terrifying.
Yeah,
And
I'm already horrified.
it looks like a giant apocalypse horse. And I just something about that screams Satanism to me. And the other thing is, so when the original Denver airport was established, there is like a capstone that they put in the front of the airport that has everyone's names on it, and in the middle of the capstone, it's the logo of the Freemasons, who
Hmm.
have often been associated with the Illuminati.
Interesting.
And the airport has always been talked about for being efficient and for being clean and just basically being like almost like this like utopian airport. But I think it's just because there's something going on behind the scenes there. And there's actually it's rumored to be a series of tunnels that were built under the airport, and that's where
That's where the Hollow
what
Earthers live.
yeah, either the Hollow Earthers
Oh,
or
hey.
the Illuminati, one of the two of them. But I don't know. They might be held up in there just running their little airport like it's a utopia.
That's an interesting take. Obviously I haven't been to the Denver airport, so I'm not the
Mm-hmm.
perfect expert to talk about this, but I do think that's it sounds from what you're saying, it sounds very convincing to me. Definitely with the Freemason connection. I do think I did see on History Channel. I think I did see something like they did some sort of documentary covering this conspiracy. So I think that's very interesting. I want to
Yeah.
get Bailey's take.
Yeah, I mean, as a Hollow Earth enthusiast now,
Of course, of course.
I'm I'm pretty convinced that I found my end. I mean, my original thought was that the Hollow Earth people lived in the tunnel that Lalo Salamanca builds at his house in Better Call Saul. Sorry for the spoilers. But now could be this. I did read a little bit about that they did confirm that they did receive, I guess, certain, I guess, like insignia or like decorations or ideas or I don't know, gifts from the Freemasons. So that has been confirmed that there is some Freemasonry, I guess, or objects that are in the airport. So yeah, that's definitely at least been confirmed. But now I'm convinced that this is where the Hollow Earth people live
Yeah.
because I hope they exist now because I'm very
Yeah, the
curious
Hollow
about
Earths
them.
and the real Paul McCartney. He's been
Got
under the
it.
Denver airport this whole time. You've heard it here first. And Tupac.
Man.
Oh
All
yeah,
right, well,
true.
let's go to Denver for our next podcast.
Yeah. Okay. So our next podcast is going to be a live podcast from the Denver airport. So under the tunnels, though, you got to find us. Um,
Ooh.
well, I
Hollow Earth only.
yeah. Well, that pretty much. I say that's a good point to stop this episode. I want to thank you again, Bailey, for coming on, and then I want to thank Jared for coming on for the first time.
Of
Yeah, of
course.
course.
And yeah, if you guys, like this, like the 638 podcast, like hearing us talk about, some random stuff, feel free to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. Just, hit the download button on everything, and that'll be fine. And thank you again for watching this video. And just remember that birds aren't real. Okay, bye.